Okay, everyone. So we are going to get started now. Thank you all for attending. Originally, we had planned to hold all of these events entirely in person. We have altered the event structure in response to the pandemic by also live streaming the event on Zoom. So if you've attended a few of these, you've noticed that's a similar, I've been mentioning that every time. So the students have worked really hard to transform the presentations they initially imagined into a more hybrid structure where they can engage the physical audience, but also the virtual audience. And so they've been doing a wonderful job, and Stephanie has a really engaging activity to facilitate that exchange. So we have two audiences, as I said, but all of the audience, so whether you're in the room or whether you're on Zoom, you are going to need your cell phone to participate. So make sure you have your cell phone nearby. We are also going to ask those of you on Zoom to type your ideas and comments into the chat box. So as Stephanie's asking questions, you can participate by engaging and offering some ideas into the chat box. We have Nick Zagzug monitoring that, and then he will share any pertinent information into the microphone. Tonight's event is part of a broader, larger spring lecture series sponsored by the National Endowment for the Humanities titled From Horror to Heroism, The Evolution of War Remembrance. We have placed the lecture schedule in your folders at your table. For those of you joining by Zoom, we have entered my contact information into the chat box. Contact me and I will email you any information that you would like, including a schedule. In terms of content, this event is the first of three focusing on the war on terror. So the first two events in this lecture series focused on the Civil War. We are now transitioning and we are going to focus the final three events on the war on terror. I do not want to reveal too much because the presenter has worked hard to create an experience for all of you. But I do encourage you to keep in mind the project's organizing principle. We hope that this event will help you better appreciate the tension between the horrors of war and the narratives we tell about war. To help us do this important work, let me introduce our speaker, Stephanie Young. Stephanie served in the United States Navy as an air traffic controller on board the USS Nimitz, which was home ported in Everett, Washington during the time of her service. Stephanie is now in the teaching program at Louisiana State University in Shreveport. She hopes to be a kindergarten or first grade teacher after she graduates. Stephanie's greatest accomplishment and passion is her family, which includes her husband, Adam Gearhart, and daughters Eliana, who's age 4, and Anastasia, who will turn 2 next month. Please join me in welcoming Stephanie.
Good evening, everybody. So as Dr. Ibsam mentioned, go ahead and have your cell phones accessible. There are the Wi-Fi information there on each of your tables. And for those of you who are on Zoom, just whatever Wi-Fi you have or however you connect to the internet will be great. So I just want to thank you all so much for joining me here today and allowing me the opportunity to speak with you. As Dr. Ibsam mentioned, my name is Stephanie Young, and I am a United States Navy veteran. I served from May 2013 until April 2017. I have one more year at LSUS, and I am in the teaching program and hope to teach in the Shreveport-Bossier area after I graduate. I want to start tonight's conversation off by saying that I fully support our veterans and our military. I'm proud to be an American. I love our country, and this is my home. However, I do believe that there are a lot of untold truths about our military, and oftentimes these are truths that are unwelcomed by the community or the public. So today, I would like to create a space where we can all talk honestly. I'm going to show you 2 video clips. I want you to pay attention to the feelings and emotions that you feel while watching these clips. After watching them, I'm going to ask that you share with me what your thoughts are. So for those of you who do not enjoy talking in front of people, don't worry, this is for you because you get to respond via your cell phones. I want you to remember that there are no right or wrong answers. And after we get some of these thoughts out into the air, we will dive into our grand conversation. So if y'all are ready, I am going to start our first video clip.
I miss you, Daddy. I love you, Daddy. Can't wait to see you. Happy birthday, Dad. All I want is nothing more. To hear you knocking at my door. Now I'm built to home. I miss you, Daddy, and I hope you can come home soon. Went to the doctors. Found out we're having another girl. Make a goofy face for Daddy. When you said your last goodbye, I died a little bit inside. I lay in tears. Good night, Dad. Good night, honey. Love you.
If you had a wish today, what would your wish be?
That my dad could be here.
Our sons are doing what they need to do to protect the country.
You don't realize the sacrifices that you guys make. You sacrifice your friends that you grew up with, and especially getting to be home with your family. My tour is almost over, and I'll see you real soon.
How about if you turn around?
When is he coming home?
Hopefully a week.
So you brought out the best of me. You took my soul and wiped it clean. I miss you, Daddy. I love you, Daddy. I love you too. I can't wait to see you.
Today, coming in last night from Afghanistan.
She hasn't seen her son in a year and a half.
Boys, we have a very special treat for you as well.
I'm staring out into the night, trying to hide the pain. Going to the place where love, feeling good don't never cost a thing. And the pain you feel's a different kind of pain. I'm going home to the place where I belong, where love has always been enough for me. Not running from you. Don't think you got me all wrong. Don't regret this life just for me. But these places and these places are getting old, so I'm going home.
Oh my God. What? Turn around.
Please welcome home your son, Lieutenant Charles Draco.
Oh, Daddy! I'm coming! Miles are getting longer, it seems. The closer I get to you. And I've always been the best man friend for you, but your love remains true. And I don't know. You always seem to give me another try. Hi, buddy. I miss you. I miss you too.
So it's a little emotional, right? I watched this 100 times and I told myself I'm not going to cry tonight. But so I want you to all pull out your cameras, even if you're on Zoom, scan this code. It's going to pull up a little window. For those of you who are not familiar how this works, you'll tap on the window and it's going to bring you up to a thing called Padlet. So I'm going to refer to Padlet a lot tonight, and this is what I'm talking about, okay? And when you get to your Padlet, there'll be a little button at the bottom with a plus sign. You'll press the plus sign, and then you'll be able to add your thoughts. For those of you who want to remain anonymous, you don't do anything different, just write your response, add it up. But for those of you who enjoy having credit associated with your response, make sure you just plug in your name with it because it will post it as anonymous, okay? We're going to give you a few seconds to scan this, and then we will switch over to the Padlet for the homecoming video. Did you need the QR code over there? Okay. And you can also type in as many responses as you would like. You just keep pressing the plus button at the bottom. You might need to refresh the page to get the responses to come up. Sorry, it looks like all of the comments are stacking on top of each other. But I'm going to give you just a few more moments to upload your responses and your emotions or thoughts or opinions that you had about this video. All right, we are going to move into our next video, but I want you to keep this in mind. This will come back up in just a little while. So the next video that we're going to show is a clip from The Lone Survivor. For those of you who have never seen The Lone Survivor, it was directed by Peter Berg in 2013. It is based on Marcus Luttrell's book and takes us through the account of Operation Red Wing, which took place in Afghanistan in 2005. It is a story of 4 Navy SEALs who get outnumbered and outgunned by the Taliban. The clip I'm going to share with you is a climatic battle scene where the team leader Mike Murphy has to make a difficult decision on how to try and save his men. Before we share this clip, I just want to forewarn you that there is a lot of simulated violence. So if that's something that you're uncomfortable with, now would be an appropriate time to step out, stretch your legs, take a bathroom break. The clip is about 5 minutes long, so we can grab you after if you would prefer not to watch this. But if not, we are going to go ahead and press play.
Marcus. Never out of the fight. What you doing, Marcus? Murphy's moving! Murphy's moving! Where's he going?
J-Bad talk, Sergeant Hasler.
We need immediate air support. We're heading down the ravine towards the Chicago
Roger that, Murphy.
We need him immediate cash.
Lieutenant, I need your 10-digit grid.
Please hurry, sir. Thank you. Oh, God.
Now, this is a different QR code, so I'm going to need you to scan this code to get onto the Padlet for the lone survivor. I'll give you a few moments to do that. Does anybody need more time to scan the code? All right, so same thing as the other Padlet, just type your words. You can put as many responses as you would like. Whatever thoughts or feelings or emotions or opinions that you had about this film, just put it up here. I know it's a completely different type of emotion that's brought out on this film than what was on the other, which is a little more upbeat. So there's a lot of really great responses that are coming up on this Padlet. I'm going to give you another moment or another minute to kind of finish up your thoughts. So go ahead and start wrapping it up. All right, so we're going to shift gears for a moment, but I really want you to keep these two video clips in mind as we move forward because we will be coming full circle to this, I promise. So just kind of bear with me. There is a point to this. But for now, I would like to introduce you to Dr. John Pettigrew. For those of you who have never heard of Dr. John Pettigrew, he was a professor and chair of the Lehigh University History Department. He's written several books, created the Veterans Empathy Project, and unfortunately passed away in March of 2018 at the age of 58. For a little side note on the Veterans Empathy Project, that was created in 2012 and it is ran locally here by Dr. Reebson. The project takes interest in sharing the individual stories of men and women who have worn the uniform. It explores the service members' enlistment, military culture, battle, deployment experience if applicable, discharge, and reintegration into civilian life. This is a really great platform just to be able to have a conversation of your experience. I've participated in the program and I highly recommend it for any other veterans who are considering it. You all have a pamphlet of it in your folder if you would like to find out some more information, and Dr. Reebson would also love to talk to you about it at the end of this talk. But for now, let's get back to Dr. John Pettigrew. So the reason why I'm introducing you to him this evening is because in 2015, he published his book, Lighted Up, Marine Eye for Battle in the War for Iraq. And there's a very important question that he asks in the second chapter of his book, and it says, how does the United States induce a significant number of soldiers and Marines to leave their homes, travel across an ocean, land on foreign soil, and while risking one's own life, try to take the life of a stranger? That's a mouthful, so I'm going to give you a moment to think about this and process that. I've never given much thought to this until I actually read it in front of me on paper. And it started to make me think or question, why did I enlist in the military? And then I started to think, why did all of my fellow veterans or service members enlist? And that's going to lead us to the main topic of tonight, which is propaganda. So what is propaganda? We've all heard of propaganda at some point in our life. So I want you to take about 30 seconds to think about what propaganda means to you. I am going to ask that somebody will stand up and volunteer what their definition of propaganda is. So go ahead and think about it. So would anyone like to stand up and volunteer what they think? Maybe somebody on Zoom or somebody in the room? Yes, in front of a microphone so that the viewers on Zoom can hear you.
To me, propaganda means one side telling lies to get you to believe in what they believe in, and they don't care what the truth really is or don't even care to hear the other side.
That is a very, very good definition of propaganda. I'm going to share with you the definition that I have for propaganda, which is wartime propaganda attempts to make people adjust to abnormal conditions and adapt their priorities and moral standards to accommodate their needs of war. So that's just a lot of fancy words for what you just said. So thank you for sharing that with us. I am going to show you some common examples of propaganda that was used during the 1900s. So here are some of the common posters that were used during World War I. I'm sure that you've all seen at least one of these posters at some point in your life. And if not, that's okay because you get to see them tonight. I just want to note that the middle poster has taken a step farther to depict our enemies as an ape, not even as a person anymore. And there's a woman being held by the ape. And then the third picture depicts two small children. So it's just something to note, not putting an opinion on that at all. Here are some of the common posters that were used during World War II. I know it's easy to dismiss these posters because they're very cartoonish and we're really aware and have seen these posters many times. But I do know of some people who have personally gotten these, especially this first lady on the left side of the screen, a tattoo on their body. So for them, it does hold some significance. And that's how propaganda works. It's something that makes you believe or stand behind something, and you don't really understand the whole story. You just know the story that you're being told. Now, here are some of the posters that were used during the Vietnam War. I'm not as familiar with the Vietnam War as I am with the World War I and World War II posters. So these are fairly new to me. But I have noticed that in the first poster, that it is a poster that is depicting fear or instilling fear in America by saying that communism is coming here. And I mean, basically saying that we need to go there to destroy the enemy. So now we're going to go into some questions that I have about war propaganda. And my first question is propaganda as prevalent today as it was during the 1900s? So if you believe that propaganda is as prevalent today, would you please raise your hands? That is like 100% of you. So I'm not going to ask my second question, which is if you don't, then raise your hand, because that would be nobody. But if you're on Zoom and you think that propaganda is not as prevalent today, you can do a thumbs up if you would like. So I am very interested in your opinions here. And I would like to pull up our thoughts and opinions that were listed on the homecoming video, Padlet. Yeah, it looks like some of these are stacked up. We're going to sort this out and then I'll keep talking. All right, so here are the thoughts and the feelings that we had about this film. I just want y'all to remember that the film that I showed y'all about the homecoming video was an ESPN tribute film. So I want y'all to think back on the film and think about how the music that was played throughout the entire clip and how the videos all flowed very easily together. And look at the words that are on the screen. And some of the feelings that we have is family, inspiring, warming, hope, emotional, pride, support. So how does this video relate to propaganda? Would anybody like to share that? That's okay. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Chad.
So, can you hear me? Is this thing
Yes.
on? Okay. So, watching the video, like you see the people in like uniforms coming home and their families just running to them. There's like a stadium of people. It's a public event, and everyone's just kind of elevating that person. It kind of makes you want to be in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly how I feel about it. It makes you kind of chase that feeling. So I want to share with y'all some facts that we have. So number one is the Department of Defense paid the NFL $6 million from 2011 to 2014 using taxpayer dollars. There's no clear breakup on what this money was used for. And in November of 2015, the DoD paid $10 million to various sports leagues. So think about your average NFL football game, especially their halftime show. It's very common to see the jets flying overhead, especially during the bigger games, such as like Super Bowl. It's very common to see the national anthem being sung by somebody kind of famous. And then my personal favorite is when they unravel the giant American flag across the halftime or across the field. These are all incredible and heartwarming emotional events that bring out strong patriotic feelings. But think about how much money it costs for all of these performances. And today, the DoD is no longer allowed to pay the NFL because people began to ask questions and actually deemed these acts as paid patriotism. In your folder, you will all find the pages from a report that the late Senator John McCain and former Senator Jeff Flake, both from Arizona, had done. It goes into detail about how the Pentagon paid sports teams to include patriotic celebrations in the sporting events. So, looking at the screen again, and of all the emotions that we felt together as a group, I think it's safe to say that we all responded exactly how the government expected us to. And now I want to take a closer look at the Lone Survivor clip. So to me, The Lone Survivor is an excellent movie. I think it's very powerful and very beautifully portrayed, in my personal opinion. But it's also very dramatized. Can y'all think back on the film and all the different sound effects of the battlefield or the battle scene? Think about how the lighting and the different angles really help to make you feel like you were a part of the action and actually there. Do y'all remember how the film became really still as Mike Murphy died or was dying, I guess, and how it really zoomed in on his breathing as he succumbed to his death? And then think about, I don't know if you noticed or not, but as all of the Taliban soldiers were dying, it was very quick and insignificant, and it moved on to the next guy. There are many of them that passed away, but we didn't really pay much attention to them, and this clip only showed one of our men who died, and it was very drawn out. I imagine that it was much different for Mike Murphy and the other 3 Navy SEALs that were there that day. And I just want to explain to you how that can be super dangerous. Hollywood productions like this entices young men and women to pursue the same experience, but this is not the same experience that you get in the military. It's not a common one. So it's easy to believe that this is not propaganda because it's based on true events. However, if we look at the history of cinema, war films often blend drama and historical facts to create a more pleasurable experience to the viewer. So going back to our questions, my next question is, what are some other examples of contemporary war propaganda that you have seen? I know I've done a lot of talking tonight, so I am going to open up the floor and the mic for y'all to answer. So if you can think of any different types of propaganda that we're exposed to on a regular basis, please share.
Hi. You always see like the recruitment videos for like the Army, for example, or even the Air Force.
Yes.
Just coming from a Barksdale.
Yes. So if you couldn't hear her very well, she was saying that the recruitment videos that come from like Barksdale and the commercials that they play, that is definitely a very common form of propaganda.
You got the popular video games, Call of Duty, Battlefield, that are very reminiscent of what we saw Mike Murphy and Marcus Luttrell go through, that depicts soldiers on the battlefield,
right?
And gets, that's marketed toward kids and stuff.
Yeah. So I don't play video games. Can you kind of explain what the Call of Duty game kind of takes you through?
The Call of Duty franchise really takes you through usually different units through different time periods. It's been World War I, World War II, modern. Now the most recent one is Vietnam, and just takes you through the battlefields of dealing with fictional storylines of what happened during these wars and stuff, and really just puts you in the action of being a foot soldier, picking up guns, shooting people. You get what's called kill streaks, which are obviously the better you do, the better power ups you get. Makes you harder to kill, or you get a jet flying over. It just makes it all fanciful. And Battlefield is the large scale destructible maps and jets and tanks and everything else going around, and it's along the same lines though. So it brings you in, and obviously the better you do against your enemy, the better you know the harder it is for your enemy to kill you.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that with me. So it sounds like playing video games lets you participate in war from the comfort of your seat. Can anybody else think of another example of propaganda that we're exposed to?
A lot of movies, not just like The Lone Survivor, but sometimes they like to get you early. So you have like Captain America. Um, the most recent one was Battle of Los Angeles, I guess. They sent the Marines to fight aliens, so they
Yes,
saved
I
the
like that
day.
movie.
Zero Dark 30, stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with me. Does anybody else have? Oh,
Yeah, there's a lot of songs that kind of promote propaganda to go. Before we go out on missions, we used to always listen to some kind of music that would pump us up and get us ready. And they still do it today. My little brother, he listens to music, and Toby Keith sang a bunch of songs about killing the Taliban and stuff, and it got him riled up, and he'd call me, hey, did you hear this song? So
yeah,
music does it
music's
too.
very powerful. Thank you.
So I actually have two different examples. One can be from your own family.
Yes.
I come from a long line of military members. The other one could be JROTC because they use it as a substitute. Instead of taking gym class, you can take JROTC
Right.
in high school.
I never even thought about that one, but I agree on the your family. I come from a family of veterans also. My stepdad was in the Air Force. My younger brother was in the Air Force. My older brother was in the Army. And then I joined the Navy. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything?
So we went to the Barksdale Air Show a few years ago. It was the first time I've lived in Shreveport, Bossier for a long time now, and it's the first time that I ever went. And they had this moment where they trotted out the new Air Force recruits, and these were like 16, 17-year-old kids that were brought up in front of the entire crowd at one point in the air show. And we all had to salute them and clap for them and wish them good luck on their journey. And I just thought, it was such a powerful moment. And these were basically children straight out of high school, if not still in high school. And it perpetuated that moment of, these are heroes. This is something to be commended. And, it was right before our eyes. It was real. It wasn't on a video, or it wasn't in a video game. It was people. You got to see them in front of you.
Yeah, that's super powerful. Thank you. Does anybody else want to share anything?
So I would say probably toys. Oh, yep. Sorry.
There you
we
go.
Okay. I would say probably toys like G.I. Joe and stuff, and like tanker trucks, because we like invite our kids to like play with these things because they like represent like heroes, but actually we just like allow our kids to like participate in like violence.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So for those of you who could not hear, she was saying that toys such as G.I. Joe or tanker toys, because it's promoting our kids to play war and play violence. So that is a very good point. Thank you.
I work at an elementary school library, and it's Military Child Month, which is sponsored by the Department of Defense. So this week, I am the propaganda this week. I am reading books to kids about what it's like to be a military child. So, and then we're like talking about the difficulties of what it might be like to have a parent who is deployed in the military. So that is something that I am doing, and that my school. I mean, we have a huge military child population because we're right by Barksdale. So
Right.
yeah.
Thank you. That's a very interesting one. I wouldn't have thought about that.
Sorry. So you probably know you were in the Navy, but there's like a whole week dedicated to being in the Navy. It's called Fleet Week,
Yes.
and you just go to New York and party for a week, and you wear your dress whites, and everybody loves you, and you can't do nothing wrong.
That's right. You're celebrated and you're
It's
given
great.
free drinks, free food.
I'll do it today.
Great time. I agree. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add?
So this comes from someone on Zoom. They wanted to point out that this propaganda that we're looking at specifically points out or targets people with a lack of purpose or a perceived lack of purpose, and that this propaganda that we've seen all offers a kind of purpose. And I wanted to add on to that thought with there's new waves of propaganda videos being sent out by military branches such as the Army and Navy that specifically target Gen Z people who are fresh out of high school and sitting at home due to the pandemic, or are placed in a lot of financial debt due to student loans and tuition rates being at an all-time high, an unprecedented high. So that was someone on Zoom's thoughts, the lack of purpose and addressing that lack.
Thank you very, very much for sharing that. I agree. That's a very easy, and especially the younger you are, the more impressionable you are. So it's easy. It's an easy target group. Would anybody else like to share anything? Sure.
Kind of the reason I joined was for free college, and I mean, you think about it, you get military discounts, you get. I mean, that's not why I joined, but the free college, the GI Bill. There's so many like financial advantages that you wouldn't have had before, and so they can kind of target lower socioeconomic status kids who I didn't have money for college, so what are you going to do? So
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I agree. I've told many people who are saying that college should be free, like, oh, well, college can be free if you join the military. That is a huge selling point for joining the military. Thank you. Would anybody else like to share? Anybody on Zoom? We're good. Okay, so somebody had brought up movies, and I think that that's a very big point. I would like to talk on that for just a moment. I know we talked about The Lone Survivor, but on a typical movie experience, especially if you're going to see a war movie, you typically go to the movies with other people. You don't really go alone. Some people do, and that's okay. But if you go to the movies, think about this. You can raise your hands if you'd like to. You don't have to. You can just think about it. Did you order popcorn and drinks or candy? Because I know when I go to the movies, I am the first one in line for the concession stands. It's, yes, extra butter, extra candy, an extra large Coke. And when you're at the movies, like, are you excited and feeling pumped up about what you're seeing? Because a lot of it I had seen on the Padlet, somebody had posted badass. And I mean, yeah, it is badass to see some of the scenes that are played. Like, wow, that looks really cool, really fun. And then think about after the movie's over. What did you do? Did you continue in the war, or did you get to go home and continue on with your normal life? Because it's phenomenal to me that as an audience, we get to experience and participate in the most desirable versions of the war or the military for a very, very short while. But then after it's over, we all get to resume our normal lives. But war is nothing like that. There is no desirable versions of war. There's no leaving, and there's no getting to go home while you're in it. War is real, and we don't get to see that version as civilians. So my final question is, why is propaganda so difficult to spot today? Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
because we're still living it. It's easy to spot World War II because we're removed from that war. We're still living during, the global war on terrorism, so it's evolving as society evolves, and moving with the generations. And it's so slight because we're still in it.
That's a really good point. Thank you. I've seen some people kind of moving. Does anybody else want to say anything?
I think it's just, I think back in the day it was a lot easier to spot, and now, like, I guess after the Vietnam War, we had a lot of mistrust with the military, so they had to get smart with how they advertised and how they did propaganda. And I guess one of the best examples, not saying that it was a bad thing that the nation was united, but after 9/11, that's what got us into the Afghanistan wars. And now we see where we're at today, and we're still fighting those wars over just an initial catastrophe. And um, they've gotten really good at making it feel really good to fight in these wars, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you. That's spot on how I feel. Propaganda is very participatory now. Like there's a lot of ways to participate in things. And like you had mentioned, it feels good. The homecoming videos, I mean, it feels good to watch that, but you're only given a very desirable version of what's going on. You don't know what's happening behind the scenes of the service member being gone for 9 months to a year and a half, missing out on their kids' lives, and you don't know what they're being exposed to. But as an audience, we get to experience the very heartwarming, emotional side of it, and it makes it feel good. But there isn't a lot of good feelings that are associated with war when you're actually in it. And also, like Chris had said, that it's constantly revolving. So our guards are down. We're not really looking for propaganda. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to comment on?
Yeah, so this is another point from Zoom. Late Chambers says that propaganda has evolved so much to the point that it's so sophisticated that it's on social media, right? And I think the point she's trying to get at is that it's become almost casual because it's so ever present, right? And you scroll through Twitter, I mean, you're going to see a few army ads every scroll of the finger. Watch a YouTube video and 3 of the mid-roll ads are going to be army advertisements. It's so casual, and that casuality has it's yielded, it's resulted from over sophistication, from sophisticating it, from just ingraining it into our media to where it's almost expected now.
Right.
There's a difference between walking down the street and you see a big red, white, and blue "I want you" poster, and you're going to notice that. Whereas being bombarded by so many ads over and over again, it just becomes normal. So the propaganda is just ever present, and you internalize it. It's normalized.
Thank you. That's a really awesome point. Would anybody else like to add anything to that?
I was going to say one of the things I noticed that not pointed out, but that your talk made me think about was the propaganda in World War II and World War I was about the civilian population pulling their weight and having victory gardens, and also like, don't tell secrets because then people will hear. And today, as someone who's 34 years old, who wasn't the military's target demographic, I feel like I'm not getting any messages to support the military the way that they used to do back in the day. It's just like enlist, 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 and it's not about getting us as civilians to actually support the troops by sacrificing anything in our lives. The only thing I remember after 9/11 was George Bush saying, go out and buy things, which is the opposite of sacrifice. He was like, pump up the economy. So I feel like there's no spirit of camaraderie in trying to help with the war effort. So
Thank you. Yeah, I've never thought about it that way. That's a really awesome perspective. Thank you for sharing that. Does anybody else have anything? I'm going to give it just a minute longer. Nobody on Zoom? Everybody's good?
So this is another point that was just made on Zoom, is that a lot of the modern propaganda is very complimentary to a young audience, such as like the slogan "Army Strong," right? It's implying a sort of like a power up, right? Like you gain strength or you gain confidence or you gain power, So it's evolved to that too, where it's like complimentary, even though someone who may be struggling with insecurity, this is a way to gain security. It's very, like I said, it's complimentary. It's like a power up, right? You do this and you become stronger, you become better, you become smarter.
Yeah, kind of like an ego boost.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Chad, it looks like you want to send it. Okay. So I know for me, my favorite billboard that I see driving through the Shreveport Bossier area is a female Marine who is standing with a big gun. I don't know guns, so I can't tell you what type of gun it is, but it says "My Place in the Marine Corps." And when I look at that, I'm like, oh yeah, she's awesome. Look at her go. And it wasn't until I took this course with Dr. Reebsam that I realized, like, wow, that's propaganda. And it started to make me open my eyes that how prevalent propaganda is around us. So, unfortunately, we are approaching the end of tonight's talk. So I'm going to start wrapping things up, unless anybody else has anything else they want to say. One last chance. Okay. So, first off, I want to thank you all again so much for being here and participating in this presentation. I also want to thank Dr. Reebsam and Jason, Chad, Chris, and Steven for all of their hard work that has been put into this series that we're a part of. Remember that the next event will be on April 30th by Chris Howard. So look into your folder for more information on that event. And I also want you all to remember that propaganda is designed to elicit certain feelings and emotions out of us. There's nothing wrong with feeling these feelings, but it's just really important to be aware of what propaganda looks like and how it's going on all around us. As humans, we're naturally easy to manipulate and persuade. And as a nation, we're typically only given one side of the story, and that's typically the story that's going to make America look great. So I encourage you to hear as many stories as you can so that you can get a very well-rounded version of the truth. I am going to leave you tonight with a quote from Joseph Goebbels. For those of you who do not know who Joseph Goebbels is, he was a German Nazi politician. And he says that propaganda works best when those being manipulated are confident that they are acting on their own free will. Thank you. Have a great night.
All right. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for an exciting, interesting, engaging talk. It's really wonderful to see you facilitate a conversation on that difficult topic and a very important topic, I think, that we all need to be reminded on. So thank you for teaching me and for teaching all of us. That does conclude the event tonight. For those of you on Zoom, you can see the link on the screen. We're also going to put it in the chat box. Please offer your feedback on the event and how we can improve events and anything that you liked about the event or what you would like to see in future events. For those of you physically here, I have a survey that I'm going to pass out, and please take a moment to fill it out, and so we can continue to improve the offerings and the programming for future events. Thank you so much.